mind maybe you want to start by just playing a little bit of the last piece, telling everyone how to be?
Yeah, the Cunningham Dance Company at the end of 2011, last December, did its final performances at the Armory in New York. And the four musicians who were associated with the company mostly in the last several years: Christian Wolf, Takahisa Kasugi, John King, and me. We were fortunate to have unusual resources at our disposal for these Armory performances. And so we were able to assemble an ensemble, a musical ensemble that we usually don't have access to. They're very wonderful musicians. And that was how Okkyung began involved, and how we began to work together.
And can you say something about the piece itself? When you were looking, those of you who said you were looking at the floor and some notes on the paper, what's on the paper, and can you explain what's happening between the two of you?
Yeah, the thing about the Armory performance is that the timing had to be very precisely controlled, because the event was under an hour, it was about 50 minutes, and we had it's not that the dance depended at all on the music, but just that the four elements of the music needed to happen during this time of 50 minutes. So some of the notations that Ken and I used had to do with timings, and which we actually didn't have to follow tonight. But it's a combination of the performance of this piece that we did together also had a brass sextet, the tilt ensemble in New York, and the six brass players. There were three trumpet players and three trombone players, and they were on the balcony of the Armory. It's an enormous space that goes an entire block from Park to Lexington Avenue, and so they were. The six of them were on the balcony above the main space, which had three stages. The Cunningham Dance Company was distributed over three stages in this very large space. And Okkyung and I were on the lower platform. And so the notations had to do with, in some cases, very loose notations for musicians, and in a few cases more precise. And for part of it, very rough notation, with excellent musicians today that are often better off not saying what they should do, because you're going to be surprised by something that's better than what you would find yourself. So that a lot of what Okkyung did is your own invention.
Does anyone have any questions? You, the ghoul on the left.
Thank you very much for your performance this evening. Not being an improvisational musician myself, I have very vivid storytelling and emotional response to your work. I'm wondering how much, considering that you are professionals and you have notations, is there any role of emotional conversation between the two of you?
Well, I do know. I think we try to do what we can do as well as we can, and of course, it's a very complex subject of music and emotion. And also, the Cunningham Company is in the tradition of John Cage, and he always said, if I'm instead of making sad music, if I'm sad, I should just say, I'm sad. I think, I don't know if Okkyung agrees, but we work in a musical situation which has its own characteristics, which we just try to work within that, according to the nature of the medium itself.
Any other questions?
Yeah. You're listed as producer on Terry Riley's In C album on Columbia. I was wondering if you produced anybody else, or
those years when I worked at Columbia Records were pretty unique. I mean, I've done a few little recording projects here and there since then, but nothing as intense as those years in the second half of the 60s.
Okkyung, when you do an improvisation, do you approach it differently depending on the context? So, as you were playing with David Tony, do you think about what you were about to do differently than you would any other solo improv?
You're talking about solo or
Yeah.
not really most of the time. I don't really know. I don't really think about it much. I mean, in a way, it's the best if I go on stage as a tour band, and then it sounds really funny, but I kind of want something to. What I'm trying to say is like once I start, what I do is just to listen, and I just follow what I hear. It sounds really fun, but that's why.
Sort of in the same line, Okkyung, I'm wondering if working with an ensemble of other musicians playing effectively analog instruments, if there's a difference in terms of performing and improvising with them versus working with something much more digital as your counterpart or your accompaniment. Are there any differences? Is it just the same thing, or do you approach it differently?
I think just really like, I cannot say, okay, I'm doing this music, so I'm going to provide something style. Because I think the least thing I want to do is limit myself, saying I have to stick to this style. I think that's why I improvise, because otherwise I can just play and also the music and just follow the music and just do the presentation. But I think it's just different response, and obviously there's certain sound that I use that I think they would fit better with the music that's happening, but it's not like I decide I'm just going to use the sound.
For me, working with acoustic musicians is a great relief after spending a really long time doing computer music. I must say I have something of a love-hate relationship with digital computers.
What do you love about it?
Oh, I mean, there's incredible things that you can do that no one else could do 30 years ago, 60 years ago. You know, if you try to make a string quartet, you're up against the greatest minds in the previous 300 years. If you're working with some new 21st century software, it's new territory. So I think you have more of a chance of getting somewhere new.
Well, then someone has to ask the question what you hate about it.
What do I hate about it? Well, when my generation, when we started working with computers in the 70s, it was just kind of a miraculous new, it was like a new door opening, where you had switches, basically switches that could be changed as often as you wanted. And then in those days, the computer wasn't associated with big government and big business and organization and big brother watching. So it's taken on a sinister side that it didn't have in its expression. But it's not only sinister, it's also, I mean, it does all kinds, can do all kinds of wonderful things too. So it's just, it has that dual character now. And to perform sitting in front of a laptop, and there's something not very wonderful about that if you compare it to watching Okkyung.
And how long have you been an electric guitar player?
You can probably tell, not very long.